Don.
Just give me just a quick question, Jeff. In that analysis of those 4 islands, it took into account the factors that you were talking about, the agricultural, not only the property value, any improvements. At least I'm familiar with one of those that actually has homes at the levee height, and it's family owned, it's farmed. They formed their own RD and so forth. So was that all taken into account in that calculation? I understand disagreement here, but did you apply the factors, and after application of all those factors, you still
those factors are in there. Basically, this was from the starting point of the SUDA paper, adjusting some of the values we think to where they ought to be, and then looking at qualitatively at some of these infrastructure concerns and recreation concerns, and so. And really, I should say, I put those 4 up there, but the ones that we looked at carefully were the 6 Central Delta ones, and 3 of those are outside the Central Delta one. So I should say that Fay, Dead Horse, and Coney, I don't know that we looked at really, really closely.
Okay.
And I wouldn't necessarily even want to take that at a planning level, and say, all right, well, that's it. Let's run away. I think the point was to say that I think the potential cost savings in economic savings from efficiency from this standpoint, I think have been somewhat oversold and may not be as great as people think. And later on, we'll actually even talk about those 6 Central Delta islands and in more detail.
Just one other follow-on question, though. So was there some accounting, though, for the island-to-island impact, that if one island goes down, and there's, again, you didn't really quantify that. You said it was one of the factors that needed to be considered, and I would concur with you on that. In these 4, in this kind of subset, was that taken into account or no?
I will say that just like I said, this title of this says may not justify. I would say these 4 you could give further study to.
Okay.
I'm not saying that they should. In fact, our recommendation is that even to not do it, we think that all of them we should just set that as our goal, the PL 8499 standard, because
for 6.5 miles, again, people could argue.
It seems like the cost of implementing the policy is far higher than any potential savings that's there.
Yeah, to potentially save $10 million expenditure might cost a $10 million study. I'm not making that number up. That's the Central Valley Flood Protection Plan, on which you heard a nice report this morning, cost more than $10 million.
Okay, thanks.
And just going to step on and talk a little bit about, DREAMS Phase 2 is a wealth of information. None of this information was available or released until we were well on our way with our project and virtually done with it. And we really didn't start looking in detail at any of the information in DREAMS Phase 2 until people started asking us about the cost estimates and benefit cost estimates and the questions that came from the independent review panel. And DREAMS Phase 2 is not, in my mind, gotten as much attention as it should. The data that's in, at least. So everyone's familiar with DREAMS, at least the Phase 1 study, but the Phase 2 study, the draft analysis complete in 2007, final report was completed in 2009, didn't come out until the summer of 2011. I only discovered it was out because I was searching on the website for a citation for the Phase 1 study and was like, oh, what's this? This is here. I'll point out that why I like DREAMS Phase 2, despite the fact that Phase 1 wasn't all that popular in the Delta and certainly has issues, but I like it because I said it correctly uses the DREAMS Phase 1 information to evaluate system-wide risk reduction strategies using a benefit-cost framework. I think it's the right approach. Now, the risk reduction scenarios in Phase 2, if you read the details of the ESP, you'll see that they need some revising and updating. But the consequences analysis is comprehensive. What I would love to do is to see DREAMS picked up, maybe this new information from on levies incorporated into it, and the scenario is sort of updated to reflect current strategies. And I think that would be really interesting information. Nevertheless, what's in it, what I found in it so far, is pretty interesting. One is the DREAMS Phase 2 findings that had an improved levy scenario, which was not as extensive as what we're describing in this one. It was a PL 8499 for the whole delta scenario. But it found that it had a benefit-cost ratio of 6.6, and in terms of benefit-cost ratio was better than the isolated conveyance scenario, which was, in this study, because it used older data, it was a surface canal that cost under $5 billion. Second is in the consequences analysis of a large earthquake that would flood 20 or 30 islands, it shows that water export interruptions are only 20% of the economic cost from a large earthquake. Not surprising to me, having compiled a lot of this data, but too many things say there's going to be an earthquake. What about the water supply? And I think the attention is not proportional to the consequences. Another finding from GE's Phase 2 is that the water export interruptions are less than 2%, in fact, often 0% of the cost of other floods and earthquakes that flood a small number of islands, but smaller flood events. And, of course, they have nothing to do with the loss of life from delta flood hazards. Now, like I said, the DREAMS Phase 2 report that was released it had an improved levy scenario, but actually the improved levy scenario had the same levy improvements as the isolated conveyance scenario. It didn't look at anything beyond PL 8499. It didn't look at seismic upgrades like we've recommended in the ESP. So searching everywhere for anything about seismic levy upgrades and costs and benefits from them, much to my surprise, I did find a reference that related to DREAMS Phase 2, and this is the second slide. DREAMS was the primary tool used to satisfy AB 1200, which was legislation that directed DWR to look at the risk reduction strategies in the Delta, report back to the legislature in January 2008. And so in the report to the legislature on January 2008, it actually talked about the preliminary findings from DREAMS Phase 2. And here I just have a couple of quotes from that report. The quote says, "The DREAMS Phase 2's results suggest that 3 building blocks have the highest risk reduction potential, but also very high implementation costs. These building blocks are armored pathway through delta conveyance, seismically improved levees." I've added the parenthetical comment there that the scenario they looked at there was 100 miles of levees designed to withstand a 300-year earthquake, and an isolated conveyance facility. Now, the final DREAMS Phase 2 report came out, did not have any seismically improved levee results in the report that I had seen, and so this, of course, attracted our attention. And in fact, a few pages later in this report, the AB 1200 report, it gives a qualitative ranking of these scenarios that included the seismic improved levees. And I quote, it said, "The ranking of preliminary DREAMS study scenarios is shown in the following table. These rankings were developed by DWR and DFG staff based on DREAMS analysis. The emphases are added by me with adjustments based on the BDCP analysis. Scenario 1, improved levees, ranks moderate for reducing risk and is the least expensive of the 3. Scenario 2 and 3 rank high and very high respectively for reducing risk, but also cost more than Scenario 1. And then there was a table, which is too fuzzy here, but there was a ranking table that used dots and different criteria that basically, if you go back to it mirrors the BDCP ranking from 2007 and their option evaluations program. So in response to this ranking that, in fact, seismically improved levees were analyzed and found to have lower costs but less risk reduction, we requested the draft analysis from DWR so that we could see the quantitative results that were behind the qualitative rankings and learn more about what they thought seismic improved levees were. And my compliments, they produced that report quite quickly, and within less than a few weeks, even with the holidays included. So we requested that report, and what we found in the draft, we were told that draft report was based on an August 2007 draft of DREAMS Phase 2. And, of course, we were warned that it was a preliminary analysis and a draft analysis, but it was never public. So, again, all statements about it is preliminary and draft, but it's the only state report we could find that had looked at seismic levee improvements. So we found it to be important. And it showed that actually the seismic improved levee scenario had both the lowest costs and the highest risk reduction benefits of any of the scenarios. In fact, this August 2007 DREAMS Phase 2 draft had $7.9 billion in risk reduction benefits from an improved levee scenario that includes seismic upgrades to levees to $5.7 billion for other scenarios. In the details, the estimates were that the seismic levee upgrades to the 100 miles of levee in the Delta reduced the worst-case water supply disruption by 2/3. And basically, that by holding more of the system intact, you could get, even in the worst earthquake events, you could get the system up and running that much more quickly. And that was their initial estimate of it. But these quantitative findings are in contrast to the qualitative rankings that were in the AB 1200 report. So as we note, the AB 1200 report actually reversed the risk reduction rankings that were in the quantitative DREAMS Phase 2 report that we had.
Could I just